I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on thesaurus entries. And before we start our lesson on thesaurus entries, we are going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts. Grade 6. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of thesaurus skills. So it's thesaurus skills. All right. So our chapter is thesaurus skills. Our subject is English language arts, grade 6. And the lessons that we are focusing on today is to use thesaurus entries. So that is basically going to be our lesson for today, where we're going to use thesaurus entries. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca, right? So we are going to do our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca as well as our test. But for now, we are first going to go over what a thesaurus what thesaurus entries are, right? And basically how we can navigate thesaurus skills. All right, so basically a thesaurus, right? A thesaurus, it lists synonyms. So a thesaurus is similar to a dictionary, right? It is a book with different words in, with its meanings, right? However, a thesaurus, right, it lists synonyms, right? And it lists synonyms which are words with the same meaning, or it is words with almost the same meaning. So like I say, it is almost like a dictionary, right? Where a dictionary, it gives you the meaning of words. So you have all these different words alphabetically from A to Z, right? And then with a dictionary, it will basically give you the meaning of these words. It will also tell you sometimes the part of speech. But when it comes to a thesaurus, you also have a list of words alphabetically. It's also a book, right? It also gives you the definition of the word, but they specifically list synonyms. And synonyms are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning, which means that within a thesaurus, you will have a word, right? They will tell you the part of speech of that word. They'll give you a brief definition of that word. And then they will give you a whole list of synonyms, which means the same as the word that they're basically trying to either describe or basically trying to give the meaning of. So, and if a word, right? So, if a word is not familiar, then the synonym within the thesaurus can then help you to understand it, which means that if you don't understand a word, right? So, you've learned a new word, or somebody mentioned a new word, right? Or mentioned a word. But now you don't understand that word, and this word is just not familiar to you, right? Sometimes you can even, go and try to understand what the meaning is of the word. You get the dictionary and you look up the meaning of this word. And for some reason, this meaning, it's still not telling you what the word means. Then you can go to your thesaurus, right? And in your thesaurus, you look up the specific word, and then it will give you a list of synonyms or a list of words that means the same, or basically it has almost the same meaning as the specific word that you are not familiar with, right? So, which means that you'll maybe find one of those words that may seem like it might seem familiar, or one of those words might then be a word that you've recognized before, or a word that you have heard before, right? So that is thesaurus entry. It lists synonyms, and synonyms are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning. And it will help you to look at words, especially words that you are not really familiar with. All right. So now, if we look at a few meanings, right, or examples of, let's say, I should actually change this to examples. These are examples because the answers are also there. Okay, so if we look at a few examples, right, of thesaurus entries, right? So these are examples. Here we have the word hoist, we have the word chronicle, and we have the word inleven, right? So we're going to go to the first word, hoist, right? So now you have heard the word hoist and you are just not familiar with this word, right? So you get your thesaurus. And remember, we said that the thesaurus is a book if you have never heard of a thesaurus before, right? It's like a dictionary. So you get your thesaurus, we look up the word hoist. And now, if we look at the word hoist, Hoist, right? That is the word hoist. In a thesaurus entry, right, you will find the word that you are looking up, right? Then we have the part of speech, so which means that it is a verb. Your parts of speech are either verb, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, or so on. So this part of speech is a verb, which means that hoist it's an action, something that you're doing, right? So now you already have like some form of okay, I don't know what this word is, it's not familiar, but I know it is a doing word, right? It's an action, something that you need to do. They also give you the definition of this word. And as you can see, it only says to pick up. That's all they're saying, right? And if you compare the thesaurus definition to the definition of a dictionary, right? The thesaurus only gives you a brief definition, whereas the dictionary will give you a whole list of meanings, right? So, which means that it is to pick up. So, firstly, our word is hoist. It is a verb and it means to pick up, right? And to pick up means that you are doing something, it's an action. So, now the synonyms, remember we said that thesaurus, they list synonyms, right? They give you a list of synonyms. It is words with the same meaning or almost the same meanings. So now synonyms, these are now words that means the same as the word hoist, right? So the words are to elevate, right? Have you heard of elevate? It means haul, heave, or to raise, right? And a simpler word that we've heard before is raise, right? Or even elevate. So now they give you this list of synonyms, and basically you will then be able to identify one of those synonyms that at least seems familiar, right? Because if hoist was not familiar, then at least if you look at the list of synonyms, then there's at least one or two of those words that will be familiar. So now, like, oh, okay, raise. Now I know what raise mean. Raise is okay to lift up, to pick up, right? That is raise. Think of to raise a glass, to raise something. So now they want to know, when would you most likely to hoist something up? When would you be most likely to hoist something up? To hoist something up, to raise something up. That is basically the question that is being asked. All right. So now, if we look at this description over here, right, it says, notice that hoist has synonyms such as heave or haul, right? And even heave and haul to me is not familiar. I'm not familiar with those words, right? But just notice that they have those two words. Those words, right, or these synonyms, they show that you would most likely to hoist something up when moving heavy furniture, which is heave or haul, right? So when moving heavy furniture, right, then they mean that that is most likely where you will basically lift um or use the word hoist, right? So you won't basically use the word hoist when tidying a bathroom, for example. Because remember, when tidying a bathroom, you're just cleaning. But now when they say moving heavy furniture, think of if you were to clean, right? Either the lounge, if they are talking about moving furniture, or clean the bedroom, right? So now we are cleaning under the bed, we're cleaning under the couches. So what are you going to do? You are going to either move the furniture or you're going to lift up the furniture, right? So which means that hoist, it means when moving or lifting heavy furniture, right? That is hoist. Now we have another word, which is chronicle. So we have chronicle, right? Chronicle is our word. Remember, these are all thesaurus entries. If you pick up your book of your thesaurus book, right, that is similar to a dictionary, then you will find different words, right? And once again, we see thesaurus, it lists synonyms. It gives you a list of synonyms. But also, thesaurus gives you the word, which is, for example, chronicle. They also give you the part of speech, and the part of speech is a noun. So now we know, okay, chronicle is a noun, right? And the definition of a chronicle or of chronicle is a record. It's a record, right? So now if we look at the word, or let's say we look at the synonyms of these of the word chronicle, and we said synonyms are words with the same meaning, or it's words with almost the same meaning to what chronicle mean, right? So the words that has the same meaning as chronicle is account, it's article, it's history, it's report, or it's story, right? Those are words that means either the same or it means almost the same as the word chronicle. So if you've never heard of the word chronicle and the word chronicle is not familiar to you, then you can look at this list of synonyms, right? And at least one or two of these words will then be able to tell you, like, oh, okay, chronicle is to do with either articles or history or a report or a story, right? But now look at the meaning. It's a record. And if you look at the word record, the meaning record, then usually a record would give you the idea that it's to do with music, right? But now it's to do with an article. They're mentioning an article, right? Or they're mentioning a report, or they're mentioning a story. So now they're saying that notice that chronicle has synonyms such as article or story. These synonyms shows that one might find, you'll find a chronicle in a library, not in a music store. And why won't we find a chronicle in a music store? Because as much as to do with a record, and records you'll find in music stores, but since we're talking about articles, or we're talking about reports, and we're talking about stories, articles and things about history and reports and stories you will find in the library, right? So chronicle, it is a record. And you will basically find this type of records or chronicles within a library. So you'll find a chronicle in a library. And a chronicle is either an article, or it is a story, or it is a report. And that you'll find in a library, not a music store. Because it's not like a record label, right? All right, then we have another word. Then we have the word, is it in living or in living? And the part of speech, right? So this is our word. So the part of speech is a verb, meaning that it's an action, right? It's something that you do. So in living, now we know, okay, it is an action, something that you do, right? And the definition, the meaning of this word, it means to fill with life. So it means to fill with life. So in living or in leaving, depending on what the word is, the definition of this word is to fill with life. And if we look at the synonym of this word, right? And remember, we said a synonym is words, or it is a word that has the same meaning, or it has, or it is, or it has almost the same meanings of that specific word that we are making mention of. So the synonyms of the word in living means, it means to animate, it means to brighten, it means to cheer, energize, or to restore. Right? So synonyms is to either animate, to brighten, to cheer, to energize, or to restore. Right? So if you hear the word, if you hear the definition, to fill with life. So if you hear the definition, to fill with life, right? Usually people fill life with meaning. It's like brightening up somebody's life, right? It's bringing cheers, right? You're cheering. It's like a good cheer, right? Energizing, restoring. So that is basically the synonyms of these words in living. It either means to animate, to brighten, to cheer, to energize, or to restore. And the definition is to fill with life. So now the question is, which might you think try to enliven? So which might you think, which might you try to enliven? So which might you try to enliven? And here they are giving us something that you might try to enliven is a car that breaks down, right? And if a car, if that is the meaning, or not even a meaning, but like, similar, if that is like a meaning, right? It's a car that breaks down, then it means that if we look at a specific synonym that is similar to, let's say, that specific meaning or example that is given to us, then we can say it is to restore, right? Because a car that is breaking down, we can't brighten it, we can't cheer it, we can't energize it, basically. Or let's say you can energize it based on the battery, but it is restoring it, right? So to fill with life doesn't necessarily mean a life of people, right? But life as in getting the car to start again and to move. So these are a few examples of thesaurus entries, right? We said that with a thesaurus entry, you have the word, you have the part of speech that either tells you if it's a noun, if it's a verb, if it's an adjective, if it's an adverb, right? Whichever the part of speech is. Then they give you a brief definition, meaning they're not going to give you a whole long definition. They're only going to give you a brief definition of what that word is, right? And then what really stands out when it comes to a thesaurus is the synonyms, because we said that a thesaurus, it lists synonyms, right? So they will give you a list of synonyms that is words that either means the same or almost means the same as what that word is. And then when it comes to, let's say, the synonyms that is given, right? Especially if you have a word, let's say, for example, hoist or enliven, right? If you've never heard those words before, those words are not familiar to you, then the synonyms, right? The list of synonyms, there's always either one or two of those words that might seem familiar and that will give you an idea of what you think the word then means. So you might not know exactly what it means, but based on a word that, or let's say the synonyms of those words, something might stand out and it'd be like, oh, okay. Like I don't know what enliven means, but I know what brighten means. I know what to animate means. You know what cheer means, energize, and you know what restore, for example, means. Same with chronicle. You might not know what chronicle is, right? But you maybe know words like, I know what an article is, I know what history is, I know what a report is, and I know what a story is. Where do we find stories? In a library. Where do you find articles? In a library. You might not maybe know what hoist means, but we know what elevate or to raise mean, right? So there will always be a word that you will then be familiar with, but these are then the synonyms, right, of that specific word that we have been making mention of. Right? Here we have two more examples before we go on to aplusstudents.ca. Here we have two examples of thesaurus entries. If you look at a thesaurus book, all right, I'm going to specifically say a book, right? If you look at the thesaurus, right, then this is basically how a thesaurus entry will look. This is now an actual example of a thesaurus entry, especially this one. Especially this one. This is literally a copy of what you'll find in a thesaurus. Even here, and this one specifically. And if we look at these two words, right, it says the first word is interesting, right? So our word is interesting. And our part of speech, it's an adjective. So interesting is an adjective. So at least now we know, okay, interesting is an adjective, right? And the meaning of the word interesting, it says a dramatic look inside the classroom that makes for some interesting television. right? And then here we have a whole list of words that means the same as interesting. Here they're giving us a whole list of synonyms that either means the same as interesting or almost the same as interesting. We have absorbing, engrossing, fascinating, riveting, gripping, compelling, compulsive, captivating, engaging, enthralling, appealing, attractive, amusing, entertaining, stimulating, thought provoking, diverting, intriguing, bloggable, right? These are all synonyms that means either the same or almost the same as the word interesting. And they even at times would give you the antonym. Antonym is the opposite. Antonym is the opposite of what that word is. So the opposite of interesting is boring, meaning it is not captivating, it is not entertaining, it's not amusing, it's not interesting. So that is the opposite. But as you can see in this thesaurus entries, they give you a whole list of synonyms. And we said synonyms are words with either the same meaning or almost the same meaning as that specific word that we are making mention of. And if we look at this word wonder, right? It's actually wander. And this word wander with an A, it is a verb. It's a doing word, it's an action. That's the part of speech, it's a verb. And it says, my friends and I spent the afternoon wandering around the neighborhood. They're giving us a brief, let's say, a sentence of that word. And here they're giving us also a list, right, of synonyms. So wander it can either mean amble, ramble, to roam, to saunter, or to stroll. So even if you don't know what saunter means, you don't know what ramble means or amble means, but roaming around, strolling around, that is wandering. Then there's another list where it is like drifting, shifting, stray, or swerve, right? That means it's wandering, it's to become lost. That's the meaning of that word wander, it's to become lost. And the audience became restless when the speaker wandered from his subject. It's almost like if I start wandering off a specific topic, we're talking about the thesaurus, but I end up just talking about something else, then it means that I am now wandering from what the actual lesson or subject is. Or let's say maybe at your school that you attend, right? Your teacher starts talking about she makes an example she makes an example of something that you guys spoke about, and she starts giving you more and more stories, and the stories continue, and then soon you even forgot what the actual topic was about or what the actual lesson was about. That is somebody wandering from the subject, right? It's becoming lost. We are now swerving or shifting from whatever that we were talking about. And that is what wandering means, right? All right, so that is basically a thesaurus entry, right? And we said thesaurus entries, it lists synonyms, which are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning. And if a word is not familiar, then the synonyms in a thesaurus then can help you understand it better, right? And remember, once again, we said with the thesaurus, we have the word, we have the part of speech, a brief definition. They give you a whole list of synonyms, right? And sometimes they'll even give you a sentence in order for you to understand what that synonym means. All right, so now we're going to our tutorial lesson, which is aplusstudents.ca. All right, and we're going to use thesaurus entries. All right, so we're going to do two activities and then we're going to our test, right? So here they're saying we need to look at this thesaurus entry. We need to look at this thesaurus entry. Here we have the word verdict. I'm not sure if you heard about the word verdict yet. If you've heard about the word verdict, where have you heard someone mention the word verdict? Where have you heard the word verdict? Who mentioned the word verdict? Who gives or makes the verdict? So have you heard about the word verdict already? Who do you think mentions or makes mentions of word of verdicts? Where do they talk about giving you a verdict? All right. Okay, so a verdict, right? It's usually something that you'll maybe hear in a court, right? In court. And usually you'll find a judge making a verdict, right? So you have a case where the lawyers would basically either defend somebody, right? Or be against someone. And then after a long and gruesome back and forth, right? We've heard the evidence, right, of what this person did, or we've seen the evidence. So now at the end of the evidence and the everything that let's say the judgments, right? Now the judge would then not the judgments, now the judge would make his or her judgment or make or his or her ruling or come up with the conclusion, right? This is now the verdict. So basically a judge makes a verdict. The judge comes up with a conclusion based on the lawyers. If the lawyers, they defended somebody, right, or they're against somebody, they are fighting against this person. So now the judge has heard whatever you had to say. So now before sending the person to jail or releasing the person, the judge needs to make its final conclusion, its final decision, the final judgment, right, based on, let's say, the whole case. So the person who makes the verdict is the judge, right? So we have our word verdict, right? And a verdict, the part of speech, the verdict is a noun. So the verdict is a noun. And a definition, the meaning of the word verdict is to make a decision, or it's a decision on a disputed issue. Remember when somebody goes to court, right? Then they have a disputed issue. It can either be an issue between two people, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be crime, right? It can even be where, let's say, somebody has done harm to you, even as a grade six learner. If somebody does harm to you, even let's say bullying, right? If the bullying is so severe, right, or it's so bad, then you can make a case against that person, right? Because bullying is really serious. So you can make a case against that person. So depending on, let's say, if it's also grade six learner, then of course the person as well as the parent or legal guardian will then have to also appear in court based on the evidence, based on, let's say, how you were treated. The judge will then make a decision, either community service or suspension also, or something of the sort, right? So The synonyms we said are conclusion, decision, judgment, opinion, ruling, or sentence. And the person who makes a verdict is a judge. So we said the person who makes a ruling is a judge or is the judge, right? All right, let's go to the next word, animated. And animated is an adjective. The part of speech, animated is an adjective. And the meaning of animated is active. Remember, I said when it comes to a thesaurus, they don't give you a whole full definition of what the thesaurus word mean, right? Or the word means within a thesaurus. They only give you a brief definition. So they're only saying it means active, right? So now we need to understand animated, active, okay? So now the synonyms or the words that are similar in meaning to animated are active, it's alert, it's busy, it's energetic or lively, right? So now the question is, who might be described as animated? Who might be described as an active person, as an alert person, a busy person, an energetic person, or a lively person? Because that is what animated means. It's not just to do with drawings. All right, so they say somebody who might be described as animated is a woman who talks with their hands or talks with her hands. So now, next time when you see someone that talks with their hands, right, it's like whenever they talk, they need to, their hands are constantly moving, right? That means animated. Talks with hands. All right, so now we're going to our test, right? Where we will use the thesaurus entries. So now we need to look at the thesaurus entry, right? Here we have the word deduce, right? Or deduce. And it is the part of speech. Deduce means it is a verb, right? So it's a verb, and the meaning of this word is to reason. It's to reason. And the synonyms of that word is to conclude, it is to infer, to think, or to understand. So it is to conclude, infer, to think, or to understand. So now, if we look at the thesaurus entry deduce, which is the result if you deduce something? If you deduce something, is it winning an argument or figuring something out? Winning an argument or figuring something out to deduce. Synonyms are to conclude, to infer, to think, and to understand. So, which is the result if you deduce something? Is it winning an argument or figuring something out? Deduce. So, winning an argument or figuring something out. Option 1 or option 2. All right, so if we choose the option that basically means deduce, and then we will go with option 2. Because remember, they're saying it is to think or to understand something, right? So option 2 is correct. Figuring something out means to deduce. So well done. That is correct. Okay, the next word is corrosive, right? So corrosive. It is an adjective, right? And the definition of corrosive is destructive. It is causing damage through a chemical process. That is corrosive. It means destructive, causing damage through a chemical process. And the synonyms, which is words that either means the same or almost the same as the word corrosive, it means abrasive, acidic, disintegrative, erosive, and wearing, right? So now the question is, what do corrosive substances do to metal? What do corrosive substances do to metal? Does it break it down or does it bend it? And remember, they say it is causing damage through a chemical process. Is it breaking it down or to bend it? Option 1 or option 2? So corrosive. What do corrosive substances do to metal? Does it break down the metal or does it bend the metal? Corrosive means destructive, causing damage through a chemical process. Synonyms of corrosive is abrasive, acidic. What does acid do? Disintegrative, erosive, or wearing. All right, so if we look at the word erosive, right, let's go with the word breaking it down, right? So corrosive means to break it down. All right, so that is the end of our lesson on thesaurus entries. We said a thesaurus entry, it basically lists synonyms, and synonyms are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning, right? And if you find a word that you're not familiar with, right, then within a thesaurus, with the list of synonyms, there will maybe be one or two of those words that you might find, that you might be familiar with, and you'll be able to find the meaning of the word through the specific synonyms that either means the same or almost the same as a specific word that you might not be familiar with. We said with a thesaurus entry, you have the specific word, they give you the part of speech, they give you a brief definition of what it means, as well as a whole list of synonyms of that word. And we said synonyms are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning to whatever the word is that you are looking at. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on Thesaurus skills. Thank you very much, grade 6, for joining our class. And I really hope you're going to have a good evening further. Till next time, goodbye.